Hello, guys, and welcome to a new international episode here at Women's Bodybuilding Podcast. And I'm very excited. And yeah, I don't say so much words. With me today from Texas, MayLa Ash. Welcome here at a European German podcast.
Hello, Madeline. First off, it's pronounced MayLa. Everybody makes that mistake.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm getting to the point now that I respond to both.
Okay.
But I'm so excited and honored to be a part of your show. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So you're a very, I would say a very big pro. And I think after the New York Pro, your name is in every mouth here in Europe and in the USA. So yeah, it's amazing. So at first, just can you tell a little bit about you? Where are you? Where you come from? And what are you doing?
Okay. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, the western suburbs. I moved down to Irving, Texas, years later. So I currently live in Irving, Texas. But I retired from my corporate job to pursue fitness and more specifically bodybuilding. So that's where I'm at right now. I retired from my corporate job in 2019, which was hilarious. You know, I gave up my corporate job and then the pandemic hit and it was like, well played, God. Anyway, so now my determination was to actually do much better in my competition, especially at the Olympia. So this year, that was my focus, is bringing in a stellar package to compete in women's physique at the Olympia level and place much better. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I kind of let my development phase get carried away. And I wind up gaining too much density and size for the division. So at the recommendation of the judges, you know, they told me that I should move up to women's bodybuilding because of the changes that they were making to the division. So yes, I took a leap and petitioned to actually switch from women's physique to women's bodybuilding in New York Pro. And the rest is history, as they say, because it was, you know, I thought the best that I would do is that I'm going to go to the New York Pro, I'm going to compete in women's bodybuilding, and then I'm just going to get some feedback about what I need to do to improve so that I can do better. And so everything was just, and even now it's so surreal. It's unusual, like you said, after the New York Pro, because it's such a prestigious show. After winning that, you know, all of a sudden, you know, everybody's like, oh, MayLa Ash. And I'm like, hey, I've been here for a while.
Yeah, you're competing in a new class. Everyone knows you as a women's physique division competitor, and now in women's bodybuilding. So I don't think that everyone thinks that you're competing at the New York Pro and women's bodybuilding. So, and now you're winning, you're shining on the. It was amazing. So I think after you're winning, everyone say, hey, MayLa is competing at the Olympia also in women's bodybuilding, and that's amazing.
Oh, it is. I'm like, it is. It's amazing. It's a blessing. I feel so thankful for everything that has happened. And I'm determined because of the fact that women's bodybuilding is just getting back into the Olympia. Yeah. So, you know, this Olympia is going to be a real big thing. And for me to actually be competing on that Olympia stage in women's bodybuilding, I'm determined to bring in even a much better package than I brought in for the New York, so that I do this re-entry of women's bodybuilding into the Olympia justice. So I'm excited.
Yeah. So, but you don't have any other competition to between right now and the Olympia?
No, I'm like, even though technically I could compete in another show, I would prefer just to completely focus on my prep so that I can bring in the best package possible. So because I'm like, for women's bodybuilding, the conditioning level is much higher than it is in women's physique. And obviously my frame needs to be a little fuller. So
Okay.
even though, I fit into the division, I'm still like the baby in the division. So I need to put on just a little more density, to really be able to stand there on the stage and look like I truly belong with the best in the world. That's
Yeah.
wow.
I think that is amazing feeling. So that's like the same feeling. So you get the pro card and you're doing your pro debut. You're absolutely, like you're saying, a baby. Absolutely, no one knows you, and now you're at the same point. You are competing at the new class, at a new division, at women's bodybuilding, and you're beginning from, yeah, you're beginning in a new class from the beginning, and I think that will be an amazing way for you. So you tell that the judges tells you have to compete, or you should competing in the women's bodybuilding class.
That's correct. Yes. Before I did New York Pro, I did do a show, Optima Classic, as a women's physique competitor. I didn't place well. And so I was quite surprised about that because I felt like I brought in an exceptional package, even though when I looked around at my other, competitors, I was like, I do look a little bigger, but it should be fine. It should be fine. I'm not going to worry about it. After my placing, and I tell this to so many competitors, it's just like, the best thing to do is to always get insight, why? Because the reality is, I tell people, there's such a small difference between first and 10th place. You bring in a bunch of stellar competitors, and it takes little to make those places. And so when I contacted them after the show, I was just like, please let me know what changes I need to do so that I can continue being, one of the higher caliber competitors. And they were like, it was so funny. Because the very first sentence was, it's time for you to move to women's bodybuilding.
And could also imagine it that you have to compete at a women's bodybuilding class?
Well, I'm like, I was shocked at first when he said it, but I always tell people, because people are just like, are you upset? And I was just like, I don't respond and I don't react to my placing, no matter if I win or lose at a show, until I can see the pictures. So I tell people, because your perception of something, in that moment is different when you step back and look at it in a big picture. And so when he said that, I was just like, why? And so he was professional, and he was kind enough to say, MayLa, he was like, the level of muscle density that you have put on, in addition to your size, it was like, you no longer fit in the class. And he was so kind, because he was just like, your package was beautiful. He was like, your stage presentation was exceptional. You are just too muscular and too big for the class. And so I respected that. But then after I got that, at first I was shocked. I was like, I don't understand. I'm not big enough to be women's bodybuilder. So when I looked at the pictures of the show, and I'm comparing myself to the other women, I was like, wow, I do look kind of big on stage. And so when I looked at previous shows where the Wings of Strength was competing in women's body, and I was looking at the women, and I started to see that maybe I am big enough to compete. Maybe I do fit in this class. So I decided to take the leap, and I was like, the worst thing that can happen is I can get my hat handed to me. But obviously it went well for me. So I'm very blessed. I'm very pleased about it.
That's great. So I also think that your coach are also imagine it that you're competing at the bodybuilding class. So why not?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So like it's just all around just a wonderful transition for me. I tell people, like, the second I accepted that I was going to transition, I got excited. And what a lot of people don't understand is that for women's physique, you have to maintain a certain size. And so for me, because I had been lifting for a very long time. In the gym, I always had to hold back just a little bit. So the idea of, okay, I can lift without any restrictions now. I don't have to lift and all of a sudden it's like, okay, let me back off of lifting for that for a month because it looks like I'm getting, now I
Yeah.
can just lift and enjoy the entire process. And so there's no stress of, oh, maybe my legs are too big, maybe my arm, my biceps are too big.
Yeah.
Now just like bring in the best package possible.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about the prospects.
Yeah, of course, we are too. So I'm very excited about the lineup at the Olympia and the women's bodybuilding. So, like, if we are saying the lineup at the Olympia, you will standing side to side with Iris Kyle and
Oh my.
Taylor Trevino. So, what are your thoughts when you think about this moment? Maybe left or on the right side, there's 10-time Miss Olympia, on the right, Taylor Trevino, world champion. What are your feelings
Oh my
for
goodness.
the road to the Olympia?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm like, for what Iris has accomplished over her bodybuilding career is just epic. And so the very first time that I met her at the 2017 Olympia, I told her, I was just like, I admire and have so much respect for what you have accomplished and just how you carry yourself with being the only. A lot of people, they kind of overlook this. They always talk about the guys, but she is the only competitor in the history, male or female,
Yes.
who's 10 times.
That's
Say
true.
what you want about the guys, but the women are running the world right now.
That's true. Exactly.
No, but it was like, when I actually won the New York Pro and, I saw my name on the list for the first time, and then it struck me. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be standing on stage with the legend, I just like my mind was just blown, and so that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to make sure that I bring my best package possible, because it would be such a disservice, to come in, looking like I don't belong, looking like, okay, obviously she shouldn't really be on this stage when I'm standing next to Iris, and all these other great bodybuilding competitors that I've admired over the years. And so, yes, I'm still kind of processing because it doesn't seem real. But I'm beyond excited about this. I'm
That's
beyond
great.
excited.
So, and now that's not long time till the Olympia. Are you doing, or do you do, and your coach are you're doing something different, like to New York Pro to the Olympia, like from your training, from your prep, something different from, yeah.
Yes. Well, I've expanded my my support team to actually help with making sure that I'm bringing in the best package possible. So I've made some changes to things, and so I have an individual who is just focusing on my posing to make sure that I'm really just bringing in a stellar presentation, because all the hard work won't matter if I can't pose right on stage.
That's true.
And so, and then I've actually got with, and I brought in a choreographer, because I have a dance background. And so I brought somebody in to not only help me to incorporate my my dancing into my posing, but to also make sure that I'm a big fan of the classic poses. And so to incorporate that so that my personality is coming out in the posing that I'm going to do for the show and everything. And so I've actually brought in a different prep coach who really specializes in the conditioning levels that I'm going to need for the show. And so the transition from New York, previously when I was going from women's physique to bodybuilding is one thing. I'm like, but in my opinion, to get on the Olympia stage and to compete with the best of the world, and in the time period that I have, I'm like, it's one of those things that I have to make sure that all the pieces are in place and that everybody has the same um, focus, that everybody is about Team Ash,
Yeah.
it's like, and everybody's doing their part. And so I'm excited about, the team that has been pulled together. And this Saturday will be 11 weeks. And so after I just finished talking with my prep coach, and he's just like, you're at a great place. He's like, we're going to be able to do some phenomenal things. He was like, 11 weeks is more than enough time. So I'm beyond excited, to really see what kind of insane physique I can bring to the stage for this show. I'm just like,
Exciting 100. So
yes,
cool.
yes.
So, but I forgot one question at the beginning before we came to the theme from bodybuilding and competition. When do you beginning with bodybuilding competition, and why are you want to compete at the bodybuilding show?
Oh my goodness. Yes, we did totally me spazzing out, totally just got you off track. But actually, before bodybuilding, I was an elite level power sprinter. So I ran track and field my entire life, starting from the fourth grade, a couple of years past college until like I actually tore my ACL twice. So I had to give that up. But when I was on my track team, me and my teammates used to always talk about, when we retire, we're going to compete in some kind of fitness competition. Well, fast forward, to the present. Years ago, I broke my toe, and the doctor was like, "You're probably gonna have to give up your fitness, your fit lifestyle." And so I was like, if you can do it, that I can continue being as active and as fit, I'm going to stop putting stuff off till tomorrow. And so after I recovered from that surgery, I kept that promise that me and my track, teammates made. And I was like, I'm going to go ahead and do a fitness competition. And so I jumped into a competition just trying to take the bucket list, and I fell in love with the sport. And I tell that to a lot of my posing clients. I was just like, you either will love the sport or you won't. And after my
Yeah.
first competition, I was hooked. And so I haven't stopped competing since my very first show in November 2012. So
Wow.
I'm like, yes, and I have a love for it. It's something beautiful about, it's like, for me, it's like creating living art.
Yes.
And to take the body and to with lifting and resistance training and cardio, to slowly just evolve it and just sculpt it into something that I feel is beautiful. There's
Yeah.
nothing more divine looking to me when you see a well sculpted body that is posed beautifully. And so it's just something that I have an artistic background, and it's just something beautiful to me to be able to do that time and time again. So that's how I'm started with it. And that's why I do it right now. I'm like, I love doing it. And every year I always do a internal check. And it's just like, does it still make me happy? Do I still have passion for it? And if my spirit says yes, I go for another year. So
Amazing. So,
thank you.
so you're competing right now over 8 years.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I'm like, is it? Yeah, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah. 2013 is when I actually, because I went pro after 3 shows.
Wow.
I got my pro card in 2013 at Team Universe. That's what it was called. And so, 8 years I've been competing for. Wow, it's been a long time.
So you're competing at first as a junior,
Oh, as an amateur. I'm
as
like,
an amateur junior.
yeah.
So, and then you're competing every year, or do you have some longer breaks than a year, or what
Well,
was
I'm
your?
like, I actually, for at around, I was competing every year. I did take an entire season off one time, and that was for personal reasons. My father got really sick, and so I took some time off because it wound up having a stressful impact on my life. And so I wanted to focus. I always tell people that it's just like there's always going to be a show. There's always going to be another season. Your life, it should always be your priority. And so
Yeah.
that became. So I took that year off to actually focus on that. So it was like 2015 I took off. But outside of that, yes. Once I earned my pro card, I competed every year. So it's been crazy. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. It's been an amazing journey.
Like you're saying, it's important that you love it. And if you love it and it's a passion and you're doing every single thing and everything that you can do for the sport and for the lifestyle and for the competitions, why not? So
I'm like, it's exciting. So
yeah. And if it doesn't fit that you can compete, so now the next show.
There you go. That's what I tell them. Like, it doesn't have a negative impact on you or your family, and it is what makes you happy, what brings you joy. Move on to the next show. There's always going to be another show.
So, just talk a little bit about actually about your prep. So, can you tell a little bit about what actually looks your diet? Are you doing a lot of carbs or a carb cycling? Can you tell a little bit about how you're looking your diet or your meal plan with your training?
Well, right now, I'm like, because technically just coming off the New York Pro, what initially happens is that, and I'll just speak just for me because every competitor is different, every process is different. But for me, I reverse diet, putting more fat, a little bit, more mass back on out of my show look from New York Pro. And so technically this week I'm just starting into my Olympia prep. So right now what's happening is that the goal is that I want to put on a little more size. The commentators and the feedback that I got was that I really need to add maybe about 3 to maybe 6 pounds of muscle density all over to fill out my frame, to get rid of my physique arms so that they look more body. So, all over just to fill out my frame a little more. And so to do that effectively, you need to have a little fat so that you have some energy, and you need to have carbs. And so for the last couple of weeks, I have been increasing my carb intake so that it can support me as I'm going back to lifting heavy again. So ramping up the lifts, the intensity in the workouts now that I'm no longer, on the stage and everything, and I'm back in the prep. So you slowly re-ramp back up to, heavy lifting, intense lifting, and having enough food coming into your system to handle help you with the recovery and everything. And so that's where I'm at right now. And so we'll continue that process for about 6 weeks, 6 to maybe 7 weeks. And then you start to cut. You start pulling back the carbs and everything. And so ramp up the carbs in the beginning so that your body has someplace to go when it's time to start cutting and leaning out. So you start the process of slowly reducing the carbs, slowly increasing the cardio, so the body can hold on to the muscle that you built, but slowly start removing the fat and everything else, the water. So right now I'm at that phase of maintaining a high level of carbs, minimum cardio, and just starting to increase my lifts and trying to get those gains going. So
great. So you said that you need maybe 3 to 6 pounds more around. Do you have a special weakness area or weakness muscle group who you actually very in training?
I'm like, well, I'm very hard on myself, but at the same time, my calves are something that I always want to bring up. Well, because it's because that I have such just dominant track legs. Like my hamstrings and my quads are quite big. And so when you have that kind of a leg, it kind of makes the calves look smaller. So I'm there just like, I need bigger calves. And so that's, an obsession. But for me, in relation to comparing my physique to the women who are going to be on that stage, I know that I need to bring up my arms a little more. My back width is great, and my shoulder to waistline ratio is great. But the thing that I've always struggled with my entire bodybuilding career is bringing in the conditioning of my glutes and my hamstrings. So last year I was able to do a stellar job of doing that. This year I was able to maintain it. So it wasn't as much of a struggle. but that also was in women's physique. So even though I was able to improve it, within that short period when I did the New York Pro, I do realize that it needs to be even better for the Olympia stage. And so even though it is a never-ending struggle for me and all of my gluteus maximus, but that's one of the areas.
The glutes, I think glutes and hamstrings are a very hard area to get very hard in shape. So
yes, and so it takes, people ask me, what day is like gluten leg day? I'm like, every day is gluten leg day. But I'm like, the reality is that, you have to put in that extra work in the areas that are your problem areas. Doesn't mean that they're lagging, but if they take away from the rest of the body. And so that's why I explain to people, I was like, my glutes don't look bad, but the reality is that as hard as I can bring my upper body in, that comparison makes the lower body look unconditioned. I said, so it's critical that I can make that conditioning match. And so that's my goal, is that to bring in a balanced conditioning, upper and lower, so that it looks just very symmetrical. Just like the symmetry is beautiful and the lines flow even better. So that's the area that I need to really focus on so that I really stand out. I feel like I have great delts, but I always try to accent them more. So every place else on my body, I'm working on the details, getting what I tell people, getting the devil out of the details. So I want to really fine tune my other areas and then focus on improving what I know from a perception needs to be improved. And so, like I said, my legs, my glutes need to really come in truly conditioned and hard in the same way that my upper body can, and just make sure that the detailing of the muscle density can be really, that I pop, that I look three-dimensional on stage. So that's my goal.
So, are you doing something more specially, or are you doing like glutes and your hamstrings more per week, like other muscle groups, or do you do a very special extra exercises, or?
I do. I'm like, I separate. I know some people, they train their entire leg. They have a leg day. For me, I have a leg. I have 2 leg days. I actually have 3. I have a leg day where I focus on going heavy and intensity, but it's only for the front. It's only for quad focus. And then I have another leg day that is just so quads and calves. And then I have another leg day, heavy intensity, heavy load, hams and glutes. And then I have a third one where I do train the entire leg, but it's for detail. So it's moderate level weights, it's higher reps, it's pause sets. It's that to really just chisel out the detail of all that.
Yeah.
And so that's the process I've been using since 2019. And it's had a huge impact on improving it. And so just taking that and continuing to build on that process and everything. The only other thing that I'm planning on doing at the recommendation of my prep coach is that we're going to use some muscle stimulation sessions to actually help with that also, because over the years I've had a lot of injuries from track and field and everything. And as you're prepping, and you start depleting, the muscles, the injuries, they start to really ache. And so I want to help accelerate that recovery and still activate those muscles for me so that I can continue making progress and everything and not have to take as much of a recovery time as normally I would, trying to really make the strides that I always try to make. So, but outside of that, it's going to be pretty much business as usual, head down, tunnel vision focus, and just go hard.
Work.
Yes, just work. If I want to run with the big dogs, I got to get off the porch. So
So then you're training 3 times per week legs?
Right. Yes. I train legs 3 times a week. I literally do train my glutes 5 times a week.
Wow.
I don't train yes. So when I say every day is a glute day, I'm very serious about that. Now, when I say that I train it 5 times a week, the glutes, just like the abs and the calves, can really take that consistent kind of load, like consistent activity. The
Yeah.
difference is that I don't go extremely heavy. I do go moderately heavy, but the idea is to consistently activate those
Yeah.
muscles so that they really start, stop resisting the change and everything. And so I do hit them every day. On my leg days, I do want to cry because, yes, it is a leg workout. And then I go do my glute circuit workout, even though I've hit the glutes in that leg workout, so I'm usually crying by the end of that session. But yes, 5 days a week, it's glute day. But outside of that, I do a push-pull kind of process.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do, once again, a detail
Mm-hmm.
day. So push where I do chest and tries and shoulders. Pull for biceps and my back and my biceps. And then I do detail work, just fine tuning, the muscles all together. So I do like kind of an upper body kind of detail work, similar to how I do the lower body. So that's pretty much my training protocol.
Wow. Cool. So do you train every day per week, so 7 times per week, or do you have 1 or 2 days per week where it's rest day?
Well, in the beginning, especially as I'm really ramping up, getting back into lifting heavy to get those gains, the goal is to be able to only train 5 days. So I'm hitting it heavy and hard 5 days, leaving everything on the gym. And then there's a passive rest day where I do yoga. I practice my posing. I stretch. And then there is a full rest day where I do nothing but pray to God that I recover.
Is it
So
easy
yeah.
for you to do nothing on your rest day?
Well, I'm like, I tell people, it's like, oh, I just can't do anything. I was just like, when you get to a place that you're really hitting the gym where you need to, you don't have a problem taking that rest day. I'm just like,
You need
because
it.
yes, your body really needs it. And it gets to a point that when your mind knows that, ooh, tomorrow's the rest day, it's all you can do to get out of bed. I'm like, it's literally your body is just like, I'm not going, I don't care what you're doing, I'm not going anywhere. So yes, I'm like in the beginning, when I first started competing, I was like, oh, no days off, but as I really started understanding the process of lifting for aesthetic purposes and not for performance purposes like I did in track and field, no days off was not a logical way to do it. The body needs that rest.
Yeah.
It needs muscle growth happens during rest periods while you're sleeping, while you're recovering.
Yeah.
So you're building, I'm like, you're breaking down and you're developing, but the true growth happens during that rest period. And so if I want to really grow and evolve, which is what I was able to do this year, I take my rest serious now. So yes, it's just as important as hitting the gym.
Yeah, of course. I also think if you're training hard and correct, so you need your rest day. So
Yes.
I think sometimes I think I hit in the gym so hard the last days. Sometimes I train 3 days, then I have a break, then again 3 days and have a break. And every rest day, I don't like rest days, but I know I need it. If I don't took this rest day on the next training day, I can't give 100%. So it's very important, like
Yes.
you're saying. So
And it is.
um,
It's so true.
yeah. Doing especially in your prep right now for your recover only just beside enough sleep, are you doing some therapy or a special recovery like a massage or something like that?
Oh yes, I'm like, I am a huge, big believer in what I call supplemental services. So I get sports massage treatments every 2 weeks. I get chiropractic care every 2 weeks. During my chiropractic or sports massage treatment, I always get, depending on how the muscles are responding, like if the muscles are bunched up and they're not stretching out, or if they're adhering to one another, then I get cupping and grasping services done also. Um, and then also um, Tim's treatment to help with
Mm-hmm.
the expediting the recovery. And so yes, I get that done. And then, like I said, during my active or passive recovery day, I always do hot yoga to help keep the muscles like limber and everything, because that's also a huge issue, especially in bodybuilding. It's, people are always so surprised. It was like, you're so limber to be to be so muscular. And so it helps. To me, I'm like, having those kind of treatments done regularly helps to improve not only your performance in the gym, but
Yeah.
just your overall well-being and everything. It does make a difference. So yes.
Yeah, a big mobility is also very important for your
Yes.
training and for your posing. So, like you're saying, yoga is so many bodybuilders and competitors are doing yoga. So
Hmm.
it's a very good thing. And yoga only one time per week, or do you have a special day, or including the new morning routine, or?
I do it in the evening because I prefer hot yoga. So
Mhm.
where the room is just a little bit, the heat is just a little higher in the room than just a standard yoga class. And so I like to do it in the evening because number one, it's pulling all those toxin in. It's removing all the toxin and the lactic acid from the workouts of the week and everything like that. But being in that heat, after I finish with it, and I've had my water, it relaxes me. So when I come home and take the shower, the sleep is just divine. And so I really enjoy that. Every now and then, as I get closer to the show, I might do it as a alternate form of fasted cardio. But my preference is doing it literally, I'm like, as the last thing, like 8 o'clock at night for an hour, just before, I'm calling it, a night and everything. It's very relaxing. So, yes.
Great.
Hmm.
So if you're doing your yoga in the evening, what is with cardio? Are you doing actually cardio, or
Oh God,
what does it
yes.
look like?
Yes.
Every day, 2 hours.
Yeah, I'm like right now I'm not, but yeah, I'm not one of those unicorn athletes that I don't have to do any cardio. I'm like, just die. No, I'm like right now to maintain so that I'm doing what we refer to as a clean bulk. So I want to add the weight, I want to add the density, but I
Yeah.
want to keep my shape. So I want to make sure that I'm not putting on any extra fat. I just want to put on the muscle. So I do right now, I only do about 25 minutes of cardio, like about 4 times a week. But yeah, I'm like, never fails. I keep my fingers crossed every season, every prep. But yeah, eventually it will get up to the point that I'm getting up and I'm doing, a stint of fasted cardio in the morning and then cardio, at the end of the day. I'm just praying I'm in denial, but, I'm keeping hope alive that it's not going to be 2 hours. But fortunately for me, I'm going to be honest with you, because I have a track and field background, I don't mind cardio. So I'm one of those people that's just like, okay, 2 hours, that's fine. And I
Well,
just do it. I'm just like, all right. My friends are like, I want to die. It'll be fine. Let's just go ahead and get it out the way. And it's just like, I don't really like you. I was just like, it is what it is. So whatever it
um,
takes for me to get to the best package, the best body
of
available.
course.
If I have to do 2 hours, I've actually had a season where I had to do 3 hours of cardio.
Yeah.
So you
It's a
do what you
setting from, so
right. So it depends on the season. So you have to do with what works. So
yeah. So are you doing also cardio or a little bit more steps per day in your off season out of the competition time?
I normally don't I don't monitor my steps and everything. I do cardio during the off season, but I try to keep it as minimal as possible. Even though I tend to enjoy going out for a run as just a way of just relaxing and everything, I try to be conscious of the fact that I need to keep my cardio activity down to as minimal as possible, because it's the same thing as your carb intake. If I'm doing a lot of cardio during the off season, that when I'm in prep and it's time for me to lean out, I have to do that much more
Mm.
for my body to respond to it. And so that was something that I had to learn the hard way, because I used to always go out running during the off season. and it was time to lean out. They were like, well, do, an hour. And I was like, oh, okay. And they were like, why isn't it? I was like, because I always do an hour. They were like, oh, okay, well, do 2.5 hours. And so that was the season. It was like, okay, do 3 hours. Now the fat's coming off. So I don't make that mistake anymore. But yes, I'm like, I always do a little bit of cardio in the off season just to maintain my shape. It makes such a difference because you don't want to start each season. You don't want to start from where you started the season before. You always, if you were here at the end of that season, this is where you want to start for when you start the next season. You don't want to start lower than that. And so that's the whole thing. You want to maintain your gains, your shape, so that you're continuously building.
Yeah. So you're saying the right word, mistakes. So I have to you anything, what did you learn from your first or from your last preps till now? Or do you have make huge mistakes or some mistakes in the last preps? What do you learn for now?
Actually, my last this very last prep, this very last prep was one of my, I honestly have to say, it was one of my smoothest. So I hate when people, hate is a strong word. I dislike when people say, oh, it was an easy prep. Because the reality is that if you're really going through a true prep for a show, I'm like, you're going to go through some phases of being uncomfortable. If you're trying to really be stellar, if you're really trying to be phenomenal, there's going to be moments of just extreme discomfort. But this was a very peaceful. I wasn't as stressed, so I could actually. My body was responding the way that it needed to, when it needed to, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that based on everything that was happening this year with the pandemic and everything else, I didn't stress as much. It was just like in comparison to everything in the world. Okay, so I only lost a pound this week. I don't need to spaz out. It'll be fine. At least I can go outside. It's just like, so the idea of just like not stressing over the small stuff and getting the sleep, and it really had such a profound impact on my body responding the way it needed to. So there was no real mistakes. What it was is that me actually confirming with myself that trusting the process, it's not, sometimes you don't need to go harder. Sometimes you just need to step back and take a rest. Sometimes you just need to let things go and let stuff happen. Let your body do what it needs to do and everything. The only mistake I can actually say that I made is that actually going into the Optimum, I accidentally allowed my friend to pick up my protein for me. And so, because I love to cook, so I cook all my food. And so she was going to the store and I was like, I need shrimp. Can you pick me up some shrimp and unthaw it for me while I go work out? Just put it in there, just leave the key. Come to find out, she didn't buy the fresh shrimp. She bought frozen shrimp. It had too much sodium in it. So I was supposed to be sodium free that week. And I couldn't figure out, I don't understand what's going on. What's wrong? I'm following my plan and everything. And I'm talking to her. She was like, oh, I didn't buy that. I didn't feel like waiting for it. So I just went and got the frozen. I was just like, do you know the level of salt that's in that? I've been eating that all week. So, I'm like, but outside of trusting somebody who is not in the life. And she's like, what's the difference? It's a huge difference. It's beyond huge. I was like, never again. Oh, it's not that. Yeah, it is that serious. So, but that was my only mistake, is trusting somebody who doesn't compete to just go get my food. But outside of that, yeah, I'm like, technically, I tell people just like everything's a learning process. So I don't see things as a mistake, because when it comes to actually prepping and competing, it's a learning process. It's not rocket science, but it is science, because you have to figure out what works best for your body based on your lifestyle and your life environment. And so something that might work great for this person right here might be a horrible experience for you. And so trying to find what works for you. And then every season, that might have worked this season, but maybe next season it's not. And so that's the whole thing. It's not mistakes. It's a constant learning process.
So, and every people and every athlete are individual, and every season, like you're saying, every prep are individual, and it's otherwise.
It's always custom. And so, it's so important that people, they're always like, well, what does your diet look like? It doesn't matter what my diet looks like, because it's my diet. So you looking at it doesn't mean if you're going to get my results, and so the best thing about this whole bodybuilding process is that it's really taught me to get in tune with my body, and not just for the aesthetic purposes of competing, but in general health and wellness. So many people don't understand that not getting enough vitamin D, or your hormones being off because you're not getting enough potassium or something like that, can also have a huge impact on your current state and how you look and everything. And so this competing has taught me that, to really get in tune with my health and wellness from that perspective also. So
especially as a woman, it's so more individual, and a diet is so more harder to plan, like for a man. So
that is true. It's just like for a woman. And then as we continue to get older, and because our hormones are always changing, and as we get older, everything that we have just been talking about is accented twice for us compared to men. It's hilarious, that the most simplistic things can have such a huge impact on us, and it's just, and if you're a competitor on your prep, you have a bad day, your cortisone levels go off, and somebody says your hormones get out of balance, and all of a sudden you're retaining water. And so
then on the one day you're looking like shit.
Right. I tell people, oh my God, I've gained fat. No, that's just water, honey. Give it a minute. Get it a week. Give it a week. You're going to let it go. Just don't stress, because you're going to make it work.
That's true.
Oh, but no, that is true. I'm like, which is why I have, and it's no disrespect to the men, but it's why that I have a little more admiration when I see women like Iris accomplish what they accomplished, because like you said, she had to endure so many more things than a guy had to.
Yeah.
For her to accomplish what she accomplished, so it's something remarkable.
So I have one last question. Can you tell, or what are your goals for the next, maybe for the next 3, 4, 5 years?
I want to, now that I'm in women's bodybuilding, my goal in general is that I would love to win every major title, every major competition. So I would love to be Miss Olympia. I want to win an Arnold. Now that The Rock has created his show called the Athleticon, I would love to get an invite to that and win that show. Since now that the women's bodybuilding is back in the Olympia, the Rising Phoenix is an invite show now also. I would love to get invited to that and win that title. So any show that I'm like, that's always my goal, is that I want to win. If I'm going to do this, I'm trying to come in and win. And so it would be such an awesome, just like winning the title of being New York Pro champion. I would love to go to these major shows in this division and come out a champion. And so that's my goal, is to try to accomplish that. So
I wish you a lot of luck for every competition, and at first for the Olympia this year. So, but like you're saying, if you have the right setting, and if you're competitive, and I would say you are more than competitive. So, you're doing it with passion, you do it with love and the right setting. So why not?
Everything is possible.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people. I was like, the impossible is possible for those who believe it. And so I'm a big believer in that. So who would have thought that I would have crossed over and won the New York Pro? So,
this is beautiful.
So, but I do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak with you and to be on your show, and to bring my randomness to your fans in Europe.
Yeah,
So
it's a great honor for me too to talk with pros from the other side from the world who competing at the Olympia, who trained and competing so many years and have so big history and story to tell. And yeah, that's amazing. And I think in Germany, women's bodybuilding or women's in competition are there not so much content like on YouTube from men or something like that. So yeah, I think it's great for all the girls in Germany or from the States to listen in to people like you and have to have an inspiration about your way, what are you doing and why you're doing that. And I think this amazing. So thank you that you have time for today, and thank you for tell everything about your prep, about your training, and your goals. So thank you very much.
thank you very much, Madeline, for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you. So, for everyone who don't know you or don't find you, I will mark you on Instagram, on YouTube, on Spotify, and yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. So every follower, every fan, every woman who wants to see that women with muscles, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's beautiful. And if that's something they want to pursue, there are a lot of us out here who are here to support them and champion them along with it. So I'm excited for this, and so I appreciate the fact that you're getting this out into the world for other women to see that, because you are right. There are so many areas of the world that women don't realize that there's nothing wrong with wanting to look strong, wanting to have muscles, and there's nothing masculine about it. All of us have muscles, and it's beautiful. So it's appreciative. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, and I thank you very much for this time.
Yeah. So thank you too. Have a nice day and a lot of luck. And I will write you till the Olympia. So
thank you. I look forward to hearing from you, Madeline. Take
yeah.
care.
Have a nice
All right.
day.
Yeah.
Bye.